1,000 islands in Greece, and around 200 are inhabited, so no trip to Greece would be complete without exploring at least some of them. From Athens, we took a ferry out of Piraeus to the Saronic island of Aegina. The port of Piraeus is massive, the largest in Greece and one of the largest in Europe. Piraeus has been the port of Athens since the 5th century BCE. We boarded our small but speedy hydrofoil craft around 7 a.m. Passed through the massive port into the Saronic Gulf, and we're in Aegina before noon. Aegina has been a trading center and fishing village for over 4,000 years. Today, it's a popular harbor for boat owners and a day trip destination for Athenians. For us, it was the image of what we'd imagined a small Greek port town to be, with red-roofed buildings and deep blue water. The Orthodox Church is the most prominent and ornate building in the port, and vendors have set up stands by their traditional fishing boats to purvey attractive but overpriced wares. More reasonably priced shopping and dining is just a couple blocks away from the water. But Aegina wasn't our final destination for the day. After touring the town, we boarded Matilda, the boat of fellow nomads Tim and Karina, and headed out of the harbor into the Saronic Gulf. Matilda is a beautiful boat, and it was a perfect day to be on the water. We rounded the next island into a sheltered cove and dropped anchor to go for a swim. Much to the anguish of their poor dog. Moving on, our final port of call for the day was Epitaph Harbor. The dock was full by the time we arrived, so we and several other boats dropped anchor and settled into the sheltered cove. We hopped into Matilda's dinghy to go ashore. Just a short walk from the port, some ancient buildings and a small theater are under restoration. But the main architectural attraction is about a half-hour drive inland. The ruins of the Asclepion of Epidaurus date back over 2,600 years. Dedicated to the doctor demigod Asclepius, pilgrims journeyed here from all over the known world, seeking physical healing at its temples. It soon became so popular, a massive theater was built uphill. In exceptional condition, it's used for concerts today. Watching the sunset and night fall from Matilda was spectacular. It was a memorable first time ever sleeping on the water. And waking up for the sunrise made it even more special. On our last morning in Athens, we again caught a ferry out of the port of Piraeus. This much larger craft was on to Santorini via Hermopolis, Mykonos, and Naxos in the Cycladic Islands. The Cyclades are the cradle of Greek civilization, settled over 5,000 years ago. Of course, now they're best known as cruise ship destinations. Santorini is a small archipelago that was formed when the volcano at its center exploded around the year 1600 BCE, which today makes for an incredibly dramatic setting, although the central island is still an active volcano. The sharp cliff walls of the volcanic caldera shoot straight up from the port. The bus drivers are among the most talented we've ever seen, because this was no ordinary ascent. Our hotel was near the central bus station in Thera, the capital of the island. Tourism was in full swing in Thera. Fortunately, there's a lot of pedestrian-friendly areas, as well as dining-friendly and, of course, shopping-friendly. Santorini is world-renowned for its views. Whitewashed buildings perched precariously on the caldera walls are right out of photographers' dreams, and the stuff that selfies were invented for. Three Bells of Thera, otherwise known as the Catholic Church of the Dormition, has one of the most famous viewpoints in Santorini. There are many churches with 3 or more bells in Thera, but we had to admit, this particular view was pretty spectacular. To get an unobstructed view anytime you want, there are plenty of options to stay cliffside. But you will pay, both monetarily and physically, with the required steps to access your room and with a constant wind, which can get very cold depending on the time of day and year. If you want to get more up close and personal with the cliffside, there are 2 hikes that we highly recommend. The first is down the Karavolades Stairs to the old port. Once the primary port on the island, it's now just for day tours and for tenders from cruise ships that are parked offshore. The stairs down start up in Thera, and you can count all of the 588 steps if you so desire. But walking isn't the only way to go up and down. Donkeys and mules used to be the only option for hauling luggage up from the port. Now they're mainly a tourist attraction, though their presence is felt all along the way. But at least there's an attempt to keep the stairs clean. The fastest way is the cable car, not counting any long lines that you might have to wait in, of course. The port itself has souvenir shops, spots for fishing, and several decent restaurants. The second hike starts about 2.5 kilometers from central Thera. Skaros Rock was created by volcanic activity likely 70,000 years ago, and volcanic pumice is all over the trail. Skaros was fortified in the 13th century by the Byzantines, but earthquakes destroyed most of the structures in the 18th century, and only bits and pieces remain. The trail winds around the rock, and the final ascent is a bit tricky, but much easier than it looks at first. The view from the top is well worth the effort. Of course, not all of the island is sharp cliffs, which is important to have an airport. Santorini wine has been famous since the Middle Ages, when Venetians expanded production and export of the indigenous varietals. The grapes and growing methods are well adapted to the island's conditions. Vines are kept low to the ground and curved into clumps to protect against the constant high winds and to retain moisture in the desert climate. Perched on the highest point of the island, the Prophet Elias Monastery overlooks the eastern coast. The nearby villages are much more traditional than the tourist zones. On the south arm of the island, The volcanic rocks of Red Beach attract hundreds of beachgoers every day. The overhanging cliff and frequent landslides don't deter them from sunbathing. Nearby, the 5,000-year-old city of Akrotiri was part of the Minoan culture from Crete and thrived before the eruption that blew the island apart. The best preserved artifacts from the site, including some incredible frescoes, can be found at the Prehistoric Museum in central Thera. One of the big Thera attractions was the Greek wedding show dinner theater. Held every day after sunset, it looked like touristy fun, but at €65 a head, we passed. Santorini sunsets, of course, are a big draw, and ours did not disappoint. Finally, we explored Crete, the largest of the Greek Isles, and home of the 5,600-year-old Minoan civilization. We stayed in Rethymno, west of the capital of Heraklion. Our apartment was just south of Old Town, with a supermarket and a cafe right in the ground floor. Also nearby, the beautiful municipal park was a regular pathway for us into Old Town. Old Town itself is a wonderful maze of narrow, vine and flower-lined streets. A small fishing town for millennia, Venetians greatly expanded it during their rule from the 13th to 17th centuries. Old Town was most entirely built by the Venetians, and their influence is still very strong today. The largest Venetian construction is the Fortezza. Built in the 16th century over a 13th century Byzantine fort, its 1.3 kilometers of walls cover the northern tip of the peninsula. It protected Rethymno for 150 years until the Ottomans captured it in 1646. 200 years of Ottoman rule also left their mark on Rethymno. Old Town has some wonderful places to eat, serving the local cuisine that's been influenced by all of its varied past. We even caught a demonstration of making phyllo dough by hand, the ultra-thin, flaky pastry that is the foundation of so many Greek, Turkish, and Balkan dishes. Below the Fortezza, restaurants and cafes line the coastal promenade, wrapping around all the way past the port. At sunset and into the night, the area really came alive. Continuing on past the port, you soon get to a free public beach that turned out to be the best that we'd found in all of Greece. We took a bus tour back east to Knossos and to the Heraklion Archaeological Museum. Along the way, we learned that the highways in Crete are lined intentionally with oleander, a beautiful flowering bush that's mildly poisonous to the goats that graze all over the island, so it keeps them safely off the highways. Knossos is in the hills just above Heraklion and is very popular, second in Greece after the Athens Acropolis. Fortunately, the group tour entry had no line, and we could go right in. The area has been inhabited for over 9,000 years, but Knossos is best known as the center of Minoan civilization, named for the mythological King Minos, and this model of the palace speaks to Minoan wealth and power 4,000 years ago, as they dominated Aegean trade, and coins from all over the region have been found at Knossos. Sir Arthur Evans began excavating Knossos in 1900 and is credited with preservation of the site. Evans chose to reconstruct and recreate his vision of Knossos based on knowledge and methods of the time, rather than preserve what he found. It's the only site we know where you can see what may have been the original vibrant colors. But archaeology has improved in the past 120 years, and Knossos has been fixed in time with many inaccuracies. For example, Evans's popular and colorful throne room was most likely a temple of some kind and may have looked very different. Our final excursion was another bus tour, this time to the far west of Crete, where we caught a ferry with 1,000 other passengers. Heading out of port, we ran along the desolate Ramvusa Peninsula, where a single dirt road is the only land access. Rounding the tip of the peninsula, our destination was the pristine Balos Lagoon and Beach, with its ridiculously clear blue water. Balos Lagoon is picturesque, warm, and shallow, filling up with the rising tides. The sandy beach side was the most popular. Right by the boat, it was rough and rocky with no sand at all, but it was peaceful and serene, perfect for taking a dip and just relaxing.